Hello and welcome to the UTV Vodcast. I'm Carol Jordan, one of UTV's news editors. Today I'm joined by Alison Fleming, producer and presenter of a new up-close documentary called A Time to Die, which will air on UTV on Thursday the 13th of February. In this programme, Alison looked at the controversial and highly emotive subject of the legislation around the right to die. So thank you for joining me today, Ali. So firstly, can you tell me what was the premise behind making a programme like this?
Well, after that historic vote in November last year in the Houses of Parliament, which won by 55 votes, it was quite a tight margin, there was a lot of debate around the assisted dying bill. And this isn't an issue that people are indifferent on, Carol. Passions run very high with those who are really for it and those vehemently against it. So I wanted to look and hear those stories, but I also wanted to find out what it meant to people here as well.
So obviously, as you say, there has been a lot of discussion right across the UK and Ireland, actually, and other parts of Europe as well. What did you learn about what people are saying here that they would like to see? And especially those who are for the legislation, what sort of stories were they telling you?
Well, those for the legislation include a woman whose mother had died quite a painful death from cancer, and who found it very distressing, and he wants people to be able to have that choice. And we also spoke to an organisation called My Death, My Decision. They're lobbying for a change in the law here as well. Now, for every voice pushing for it, there's a voice pushing against it. But I suppose it's examining, what are the reasons behind that and what it means really to people here, because it's illegal. Assisted suicide is illegal in Northern Ireland. There are penalties. It's 14 years in jail if you're found guilty of that. So the legalities around this issue, as well as the very passionate arguments for and against, were what really drew me.
And when you talk about the legality, it's not just about people wanting to have choice over their own time or methodology of how they die, but it's also for their families, the people around them, the people who might be, I suppose, enabling them, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's more about protection for them as well.
Exactly. There was a very famous case in the Republic of Ireland that kind of shone a light on this and started their debate, really, because when you think about it, every neighbouring jurisdiction of ours has started the journey, the pathway towards assisted dying, but Northern Ireland hasn't. So we stand out in that respect. When people talk about assisted dying, I mean, that takes two people. That's the person who wants to end their life, but who probably or maybe wouldn't be able to without assistance. But as I've said, the law in Northern Ireland is very, very clear on this. Assisting or encouraging suicide has a maximum penalty of up to 14 years in jail. Now, we did a Freedom of Information. We discovered that since 2007, and that's since the prosecution service started holding records, that there were 6 cases sent for decisions to be made, but no prosecutions were brought. Now, there's one case that a decision still has to be made, but there haven't been any prosecutions. We spoke to a lawyer about this, and he told us that it's a very difficult thing to prosecute, and all sorts of issues weigh into it. So this is, before you even think about going to Dignitas, this is just mired in all sorts of legalities. And I think that's what the people who are for a change in the law want to see smoothed out.
And I understand that, and I know it's a really complicated area, but there are also, for all of those who are for changing the law, there's probably an equal number of those who oppose it. What are the people on that side of the debate? What did they tell you?
Well, we spoke to Tim Cairns, who's from an organisation called CARE, and he would lobby on the issue not against assisted dying. And he said you have to look at what sort of society that you want. Do we want to be a society that helps people end lives? Do we want to support people as they're coming to the end of their lives? We also spoke to Dermot Devlin, who is a disability advocate. He's very much against this, and he has very serious worries about coercion and people feeling almost obliged to end their lives because they're a burden on their families. And again, they're very different opinions, but they're just as valid and just as strong as the other people that we've been speaking to.
I think this topic is one of those topics that no matter where you lie in the debate or what your views are, you can't help to be touched by, I suppose, the power of the arguments that each side make. But from a journalistic perspective and from somebody, you have to go in, you have to delve into this very deep issue. It is highly emotive, like I said in my introduction. How do you deal with that, just yourself personally?
Well, I think the fact that people are trusting us to tell their story, is a real privilege. And it does get very emotional. You can't help but be moved when you're listening to stories of people who've lost loved ones or are showing fear around this change in the law as well. But in telling that story, I'm hoping that people will see aspects of this debate that they maybe haven't seen before and come away a bit more informed about the debate. Because we spoke to Tom Black, who's quite a well-known GP, Dr. Tom Black, former chair of the British Medical Association. He says it's a case of when, not if, this legislation comes in. So it's a debate we're going to be having for a long time to come.
And just on that then, so Tom Black says when, not if, but actually where are we in terms of the legislation right now?
Well, we haven't started the journey. I spoke to the Department of Health. They said the law's clear, assisting or encouraging suicide is a criminal offence, and the Department of Health has no plans to introduce that legislation. I also did a ring round all of the parties in Northern Ireland, and none of them are going to introduce that legislation. Now, the only way it could change the law here is if they did that, but that's not going to happen. So we don't know.
Could it come from Westminster or no, because it is a completely devolved issue?
It's a devolved issue, so it needs to come from our own politicians, but at the moment there are no plans to do that. So that's frustrating for the people in the camp who would like to see a change in the law. It's reassuring for the ones who don't, but as I said, there are people who think that it will be when, not if.
Well, it's a really topical subject and, as I said, it's hugely controversial, but I think it's really good for us to understand both sides. So when's the programme going to air?
So the programme goes out on UTV on Thursday, the 13th of February at 10:45.
Great. I'm sure it's a great watch. Thanks so much for joining me today, Ali. And thank you to you for watching the UTV vodcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share. You can find us on all of the usual channels. And of course, you can find us on ITVX. Until next time, thanks for listening.